Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Joe Ducey here with Let Joe Know at ABC15. And we're glad you're here talking about something I know a lot about, scams. And I know a lot of you have issues with that and have questions about scams. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we want to hear from you. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we're seeing here and some things you should be avoiding, some things you should be talking to your parents and grandparents about, your kids, and those kinds of things. It's a virtual town hall. We do these every Thursday. We're going to talk about COVID-19 scams. Typically these town halls are about COVID-19 and what's going on with that. But I want to expand that, and to help me do that is my guest here. His name is Seth Buffelli. He's a fraud prevention specialist with AARP. He's an advisor in all 50 states. I'm reading from your bio here, Seth. Working to increase their fraud prevention outreach work, and he's done a lot of other things. You've worked with Iowa Senator Tom Harkin. And so you know a lot about these kinds of things too. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. It's great to be on with you.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be able to talk with a lot of people. I think, once we start these scam things going, a lot of people start getting on here and talking about it. And, we've seen no decrease. You haven't seen any decrease in the scams. In fact, probably an increase, correct?
No, I mean, I tell people the bad news is that the scammers are out there more than ever before. The good news is they're the kind of the same old scams. You just take an old scam and you tweak the story a little bit, so I'm sure that lots of people might have gotten used to, one of the oldest scams in the book is the grandparent scam, where somebody gets a call to say, hey, I'm on spring break and I got arrested in Mexico and I need you to send me bail money. Well, now instead of being in Mexico, they're at college and they money for a COVID test or something like that. So the same things that we all have run into over the years are happening again. They just have a COVID switch, or it's about the stimulus or unemployment. So luckily the same things that we use to avoid those scams work with the new ones we're seeing.
Yeah, and even if they don't mention coronavirus or COVID, you see a lot of scams that are targeted for people who are hurting during this time. Loans, fake jobs, all of those things where they may not even mention, the pandemic, but they know people are hurting and looking. And so they're concentrating on that. I don't know if you can see this, but I wanted to maybe I'll put it up there. See that Amazon? Yeah, the password. This is a fun one. If we have time, I'll probably do this. I'm going to call these guys, maybe, if we have time. But anyway, it talks about password assistance and Dayton, Ohio, and there's a phone number right there, 844-309. And then there's a number right there. Yeah, I'm horrible with this. I could be a good weather person. It's always the opposite, the chroma key. Yeah, 16, yeah, that number there. So it basically says that it's an old scam. It's an Amazon scam, and it says that your password has been, someone has tried to reset it, and they give you a date in Ohio. Well, if you look this up online, from 2017, these guys aren't original. The same phone number, the same exact 16 code is listed here as a scam. And all this. So I called them earlier today, to say, hey, what's going on? I got this thing. And they go through this long thing. And it ends up being one of these things where they want to get into your computer. They want to talk about a computer. And so if we get time, I love doing this. We can call them and just see what they tell us to do a little later. But yeah, it's a scam where they say that there's an issue with your computer and that there could have been, there's a problem with your IP address, and there could be all kinds of malware on your computer, and we need to get in your computer in order to do that. So remotely, you allow them in because they give you some numbers that you put in, and it allows them virtually to get into your computer and do some work, which is legitimate from a legitimate person. But I always say, if they ask you to get in your computer remotely, it is a scam.
No, for sure. And I just looked up the Federal Trade Commission that has something they call the Consumer Sentinel. So any scam reports, fraud reports that go to police station, the FBI, even the AARP, our victim support helpline, all get fed into the FTC, and they have a great online tool you can look in real time. So I was just looking at Arizona today, the number one COVID related scam in Arizona. There's been about 3,000 total reports since the beginning of this outbreak. But the number one scam in Arizona is about package and online shopping. So we're all ordering so much stuff on Amazon and other places. We don't even really kind of remember, so we're really ripe for these, either email, sometimes it's a text, and sometimes it's a click on a link scam. But what you talked about, Joe, we're really seeing more and more of. It starts off as an Amazon package related scam, but it switches right away into a computer takeover scam. And so one of the things we're seeing is people are getting a call from a scammer who's claiming to be from Amazon tech support. And they say, we noticed some potentially fraudulent charges on your account, but we can fix them for you. We just need access to your computer and log into your account. So now once you're in, they can plant malware that can, take away your private data. They can implant what they call it, ransomware. So a couple of days later, all of a sudden the blue screen of death pops up on your computer with a message that you have to call here and pay money to get access to your computer back. And so anytime you get something from Amazon or any shopping a place that you're working with, the first thing to do is go back to your account and make sure you actually ordered the item that they're claiming they're trying to deliver. And the second thing to do is don't trust the 800 number that they put on that email. Go online, find what their actual 800 number is, and call that number, because there's a lot of these spoofing of looking. It's an email that looks legitimate, but the phone number is illegitimate.
We recently did a story about a woman who, and people out there, and we heard from someone said, I would never fall for that. And then I'm telling you this up front, we did the story, and about 5 other people said, oh my gosh, well, it happened to me. One person said, I just read your article and couldn't believe my eyes. I'm reliving my nightmare. Basically, it was the same kind of thing. It was a different way to get in. So Seth and I are talking about this thing where they want to get into your computer remotely. And once they get into your computer, there are all kinds of things they can do. In this case, they got in through, this woman got a PayPal email. And it basically said that, I guess she used PayPal in the past. And PayPal links up to your bank account. And so she said that it said that the Norton antivirus that she had on her computer, which if you buy a computer, she just bought one, it comes with this 6-month free Norton antivirus or whatever. It basically said that it did renew, and it cost her $517. So she said, I didn't want it to renew. First mistake, I called the number on the screen. And that's probably the number one rule I'd say to avoid being scammed. And that is, when you get an email, when you get something from somebody you don't know, even if it looks like a legitimate business, I don't call that number. I don't click on that link. I don't answer that text. I go to a legitimate place. If I've got an issue with PayPal, I will go to online and find paypal.com, or I'll find a legitimate number. And I think, Seth, you'd probably say the same thing. Contact them that way if you think there's a problem, because if it's a scam email, it's going to be a scam phone number. And this was. And they ended up remotely getting into her computer and through this elaborate scheme. It's just crazy sounding. But they said that they were going to refund the $500, but in order to do that, they needed to do it into her bank account directly. So she gave them access to her bank account. They got in and put $500. They were going to take out $500. Well, suddenly it pops up on her screen, and they somehow were able to manipulate this. They added a zero, $5,000. So now it looks like they had given her $5,000. Now they want their $4,500 back. So they're trying to get their money back from her. She thinks they gave her money, so she's trying to give it back. She goes to a bank. The bank won't allow it, think it's a scam, which I think if the bank says it's a scam, you should probably listen to them. If Walmart says it's a scam when you're wiring money to somebody, which you should never be doing either, it's probably a scam. In this case, she didn't listen, and they said, okay, another way to do it, send the $4,500 by UPS. So she sends $4,500 cash in a box with they say camouflage it somehow. So it's with an empty water bottle and a box, and she sends it UPS. Well, she realizes it's a scam at the last minute. She calls UPS. They said, oh, we flagged it. It's not going to go anywhere. That didn't work. It did go there. They got $4,500. So if you're wiring money, if you're from people you don't know, it's a scam. If you're buying money cards, which I know, Seth, we could talk about that too. And we'll probably go over a few of these things where they say, hey, pay us in money cards or whatever it is, gift cards. You read those numbers off the back, which is what they want. It's basically like handing over cash. You ain't going to get that cash back. It's going to go there, and just like wiring money, it's just sending them cash. You think sometimes you're protected with gift cards. And I think a lot of times people think this will never happen to me. But again, it happened to me. Our account was hacked. Let's see. Our account was hacked, and when I refused to send the iTunes gift cards, $4,500, they went into my Facebook area, defamed me, and sent obscenities and did all these other things to me. Read your article and couldn't believe my eyes. I had this very same scam right up to the $4,500. It was also a Norton subscription. Fortunately, I came to my senses when he told me to get 3 books and put the money between each page and stack it in the middle. Now, when they get kind of creative here, and I think those are the kinds of things that probably people should sit back and say, let me take a step back here. Let me think about this for a minute. Let me call somebody. Because if you're talking about this much money and something that sounds absurd to you, you're probably right. It is a scam. And so I always tell people that they need to, first of all, don't get involved with these people by not answering these texts, not answering these links, not answering your phone. And then secondly, if you do somehow get involved, take a step back, call somebody, get somebody else involved before you do that, because you're going to come to your senses in a day and say, oh my gosh. So I don't know where you're going to go with that, but yeah, that's a big one. Trying to get in your computer.
There's 3 things we always say for everybody. First of all, these scammers, they're not technical masterminds. They're not, geniuses in a bank of computers, like hacking through the back door of people's computers. They're master manipulators. That scam you talked about with Amazon and the bank account, we have a fraud volunteer here in Minnesota where I'm based who fell victim to that very same thing. So this is a volunteer who understands how scammers are trying to attack people, but fell victim to something that's a very sophisticated. They have their stories wired. They know exactly how they're going to answer every question that you ask them to make it seem legitimate. So we always tell people to do 3 things, especially when money's involved: stop, think, and verify. So before you take that action, something we say is scammers are great at getting you in the ether, getting you caught up in an emotional way, either from the opportunity to gain money or to stop money from being stolen from you. And so before you give somebody access to your account or your computer, before you go and purchase those gift cards, stop and think about what you're doing, and then verify that it's actually legitimate. So one of the great things to do is just to say, you know what, I'm going to hang up and think about this, or I'm going to hang up and check this out. Hanging up is always a good way to get yourself out of that instant, because it's always an instant. We need this right away. You have to take instant action. So whenever you're being asked to do something right away, it's a good time to think, you know what, I'm going to stop and I'm going to think about this. And if it checks out, I'll call them back. So that's a great way to get yourself out of danger.
That's a good idea. And I tell people it's so big here in Arizona. We've got it's changing, but stereotypically an older population, and where people will come to retire. But again, that's changing. But seniors are still targets, as you know. I mean, you represent a lot of them, and I tell them, don't answer your phone, and they don't want to hear that. Because they've got a landline in many cases, and they feel like their prescriptions or the doctor's going to call, or their kid or their grandkid. Well, you know what? These scammers know that that's what you do, and that's how they use it. And the grandparent scam comes that way. Seth was talking about earlier. I don't know if you just joined us, but where someone will call and say, "Hey, it's grandma or grandpa," and then the person will typically say, "Is this Billy?" And then it says, "Yeah, it's Billy, and I'm in trouble, and I need you to do whatever." Or we just had one. We did a story a month ago with the son found out about it. The dad was ready to send the money and contact the kid, and the kid was fine. But you avoid those kinds of things if you don't answer your phone. I always say, most people have cell phones now, And if it's not on the contact list, then they're going to leave a message if it's important, and you can call them back. But in most cases, these scammers are not going to leave a message. It's a one-time hit, and they want you on the phone. They want you to panic right now. They want to get you, something's happened, like this APS scam. We've got, I don't know what utility is there, Steph, in Minnesota, but ours is APS and SRP for electricity. And I just did another story. This was an APS electricity disconnect scam. And that's also common, where in this case, it wasn't necessarily you didn't pay the bill. They were going to disconnect you because they needed you to have one meter instead of another meter. And well, it's the same kind of thing. And you needed to pay the difference. And you hadn't done that. So they have crews on the way. And you know, this is a crazy summer here in Arizona. It's been 110 like 2 months. So this woman panicked, and she goes and she does this. And you know, you end up doing things that you later look at and say, that's crazy. Or from a viewer standpoint, you say, that's crazy. But when you get caught in these things, I've talked to enough people with it, and you, I'm sure have too, where you're in it and it's a different, your senses are blurred and you're in panic mode, and it's fight or flight, and you just want to get this done. And you know, and you're there, you want it over with, and you want to, in many cases, they end up getting your money in advance somehow, and you want to get it back. But by trying to get it back, they're getting more from you.
Yeah, you know, the same thing happens up here, kind of the opposite end of the calendar year. So it happens here when it's 20 below zero.
Yeah.
You know, and losing your power is life and death, literally. You know, and so again, you're in danger and you're not thinking things through. It's happening in the hurricane zone right now, where scammers are showing up where there's no power and saying, hey, we got a crew on our way, you know, for $250. We can get your power on, you know. And so whenever there's an opportunity, scammers are going to be there to try to take advantage of it. You know, and you're talking before about Arizona and sort of the demographics of the population. And it's true. And according to the Federal Trade Commission's reports, Arizona, I think, was 6th in the nation in the number of total scams reported. I think Arizonans lost about $30 million last year, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, because that's just what's reported. Most of it's not reported. And part of it is that, you know, seniors are more trusting. Like you said, they're more willing to answer the phone, more likely to answer the phone, but they're also isolated and lonely in a lot of places, and so they're looking for that connection. And that's one of the things we saw with coronavirus, is that more of us are feeling isolated and disconnected for the first time and ever, maybe. And so one of the things people are doing, I know just based on my Facebook feed, people are buying pets. It seems like everybody I know has a new puppy or a new kitten. And guess what? Scammers are there too. So we've seen a huge increase in pet scams. So scammers will go online, they'll get a bunch of pictures of cute dogs and cats, and they'll just put up a legitimate looking pet adoption site. So then you go on, you pick out the pet that you love, you send the initial payment, and then they say, hey, well, guess what? We need some vaccinations. So then you send the vaccination. Well, then now we need travel fees, you know, and so they just nickel and dime you until you're out, you know, maybe thousands of dollars. And then all of a sudden you figure out, oh, guess what? There's not really ever a pet that's going to come. And so
you set me up for that one. That's good.
Yeah.
There's one right here. It was the seller wanted us to use, well, he says Zeller to pay, but I think he means Zelle. And like Venmo, it's a cash app. I never went ahead and transferred the money. Okay, buying a puppy online, go to use Zelle, transfer the money. The next day, I get a phone call from the shipping company, and like you said, they have my puppy ready, but they need insurance to ship it. Just like the vaccination they need. The insurance to ship it, they wanted $1,500 more. I told them I'd only pay $800. He said it was required and that it would be returned when the puppy arrived safely. So this guy ended up losing the $800, and then he ended up losing the money that he paid for it because it was all a scam. So, you know, it's trusting, I think, in these cases. You have no idea where you're sending money. I would never pay for something like this in advance. The same thing with cars. You know, I have friends who get great deals on Craigslist. I do not like. I'm scared of Craigslist, and I don't use it. And I'm not saying it's Craigslist itself. It's a posting site. It happens to be. It can be used for great purposes. Yes, I'm fearful because of all that I see, how the scammers use it. And on any posting site. Same thing with, that's the other one that's popular now, OfferUp. I've seen the same kind of thing on that where, usually it's cars or something big. There's one here about eBay. They selling a car online on Craigslist, and I can't find it right here, but it's always something. They're missionaries and they have to be in South America, or they are, my husband died and the car reminds me of him, or there's always some sympathetic thing in these things that they have to get rid of this car for such a low price. So that's another thing. If you see something that, I don't use, if it's too good to be true, it probably is because it's so overused, but it's actually works. But if you see a price that's a lot lower than what it should be, and I'm all over the place because it's another tangent, but if you're doing Craigslist or those kinds of things and you're looking for a car, you really need to do your research before you contact somebody. Really do your research about what the average price is for that, what the worth is. Go to Kelley Blue Book, go to Consumer Reports if you can, and find out the reliability of these things and what they're worth. But if you see a car that should be worth $8,000 and they've got it for $3,500, you got to think maybe there's a problem here. And in this case, what they try to do is try to buy a car on Craigslist. They want to use eBay to handle the delivery. Now, the reason I think they do that is to try to sound legitimate. Like, we're going to use eBay. Of course, eBay is established, and we're going to use it. Well, eBay doesn't work any place but on eBay. It doesn't work with Craigslist. So if you're not working on eBay to buy something, then it doesn't matter. So that legitimacy they try to add is BS. This guy ended up losing $1,400 because, he thought eBay for safety purposes was legitimate. And there was no car, and he didn't get it, and he wired the money. So I'm sure you see a lot of those too. Still.
Yeah, and it's interesting you're talking about a lot of these technology-based apps, the payment apps. It's really kind of changing the demographic of who's being victimized. I'm seeing in the chat here, there's a woman who's an investigator and is commenting that younger people are starting to fall victim of these, and it really is because they're using Zelle and Venmo and all these other things. PayPal is one thing in particular that has a lot of really good protections for it. But, we always tell people you're safest actually paying for something with a credit card, because if that vendor gets hacked and your credit card gets out there, any illegal charges, you just report them to your credit card company and they get taken off your account. Now, if you're doing that with a debit card, that money's gone from your checking account, and so you have to wait until it gets back before you get it back. And on these cash apps, there's in some places there's no protections whatsoever. Once you hit transfer, that money's gone. Even if I'm paying you for something and then you don't end up doing that, I can't get it back from you unless you say it. And then we ran into this summer with something called Cash App. So it's a legitimate, one of these apps. People were having problems with it working, and there wasn't an 800 number. There is no way to contact Cash App customer service. But people are thinking, well, there must be, so I'm going to go on Google. Well, scammers knew this, so scammers set up fake websites with phone numbers for Cash App. So you'd go online, you'd search Cash App 800 customer service, and you get a fake website with a fake number, and then you'd call and they'd say, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. What's your bank account number? So you think you're talking to Cash App when you're really talking to a scammer. And so those are kind of the things that, because they're more comfortable with technology, because they live in kind of a digital world more, it's kind of changing the age range of who's being victimized by some of these things.
I think you're right. I've seen, we had something similar with I think it was a ticket website, ticket something. It wasn't Ticketmasters, but it was like a StubHub, but it wasn't that. And it was where it was a secondhand market, and the man could not find the customer service number to try to get a refund for these tickets that he couldn't use because season wasn't there, spring training, and he looked online for a customer service number and got this bogus customer service number, ended up losing more money. And so that's a tough one, because I ask people to look for the legitimate number. Typically, I hope that, when it comes to Bank of America or Chase or something, you get an email, Those are the kinds of things in text that I say never click on those links. I think people feel differently about this, but I've seen so many of those scams that I say don't click on those links. You don't know if there's an issue. If you do business with those businesses, look on the back of your card, call the number that says customer service right there. You know that's legit. We're about halfway through this, and I wanted to tell you who's here. First of all, I'm Joe Ducey with Let Joe Know with ABC15. If you need to get in touch with me for scams, we've got those kinds of things. We've got a volunteer team that helps people every day. And you can get hold of us with Joe at ABC15.com. That's Joe at ABC15.com right there anytime. And also Seth Buffelli is here with AARP, and he's a fraud prevention specialist. And Seth, how can they get hold of you then?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to get a hold of AARP if you need anything with fraud related is at our website, which is aarp.org/fraud watch network. So we have all kinds of resources on there. If you're a victim, there's going to be an 800 number there that you can get a hold of somebody who will help you out. There's articles about all the latest breaking scams. I think we have tip sheets on about 50 different scams that we're seeing across the country. So it really is kind of a good one-stop shop to educate yourself, to find helpful tips, and to find resources if unfortunately you've been taken advantage of.
Okay. I think maybe I had a list here. Of course, I hear my phone ring. It's my landline, and I know it's a scam, so we're not going to answer it. I think that I wanted to go over. I had a list here written, probably the 5 to 10 things that I wouldn't do. But I think maybe if we could rattle off a few things, we've talked about them generally, but just a few things that protect people from what you've seen. I'll name a couple of them. We've already covered the name. One of them is the not answering the text, the emails, being suspicious of all those things. I don't like answering the phone. I always want to call people back. If you do happen to get hold of somebody, you have to realize that these people, you don't know who's on the other line, and whatever they're telling you could just be a bunch of bull. Go ahead. What else would you tell people?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it before. If anybody ever asks you to send them a gift card for $500 or $50, I mean, that is guaranteed a scam, just 100% of the time. And people, this is one of these things, scammers always change their tactics. It used to be wiring money, then people started to catch on to that. That was like a tell. So now it's gift cards, and we're trying to work with retailers to kind of pull those back, maybe have them behind the counter, because you go to a lot of shopping places and they're right there, for anybody to access. So that's one thing. Another thing is, getting an annual credit report, or getting a credit monitoring service, so you get an alert if somebody does a credit inquiry. I personally have a freeze on my credit, so if I need to go get a car, I unfreeze it and I go get that loan. But that way, nobody can access my credit or my bank accounts. Password manager is another big thing. A lot of us use the same password on multiple sites. That's dangerous. I know I'm guilty of this. When I type in a password and my web browser says, "Want me to remember that?" Yeah, sure, that's great. That's also not a super safe, because if a hacker got onto my computer, they can get all of that data right from my web browser history. So going online, researching a good password manager program and letting that manage your passwords for you is the safest way to do it. Another thing, I know we're not traveling as much as we used to, but when people get back to traveling, it's really, you're in an airport or you're in a hotel, and it's very tempting to check your bank account from that public Wi-Fi. That's a huge no-no, because you're just opening yourself up to vulnerability there. So those are some of the ones we tell people a lot.
Okay. I also think that, one of our volunteer coordinator wrote today and said, "We know you're doing this Facebook town hall. Let people know about the fake check scam. I know you will." And I guess we're seeing a lot of those. We probably get 200 emails a week, and a lot of them have to do with fake checks right now. And I always say, well, anytime you get a large check out of the blue, it's probably a scam. But I always say, if it's for work that you haven't done yet, or overpayment for something you were selling online, it's a scam. Those are two big ways they do this. And in many cases now, I've had some job scams here that I won't really go into, but people applying online, putting their resumes online, and then scammers taking those resumes and calling them back because it looks great. It's like, $32 an hour, basically testing customer service or whatever. And initially they send you a check. I think we talked about a little bit of this already. They send you a big check, and then they tell you that you need to deposit it and then use it to go to test customer service at the post office, or and buy postal money orders, or go to Walmart and buy gift cards because you want to know what they're doing for customer service. Well, by buying those gift cards, you're eventually going to read those on the back, the numbers, and you're going to give them that cash. But you think, oh, I've got the $3,000 they gave me for that. Well, for some reason, and this is also something I don't quite understand, why the bank doesn't know immediately if a check's bad. But it's like 2 days later that you find out that check was bad and your good money is gone because your money is what covered buying those gift cards that you were using for this sham of a job. So, if it's too good to be true, in these job situations, that's basically true. The other thing you mentioned was checking your credit report, and that's a good one. And I don't know if you recommend this, but I do. It's annualcreditreport.com, www.annualcreditreport.com. It's basically a way that the credit bureaus settled with the government, and they allow you to get one free credit report from each of the credit bureaus, 3 of them every year. So I can get 3, and I try to spread them out every 4 months. Get one. You go on there, and it'll tell you, you get it through Equifax or Experian or TransUnion, and it'll tell you that's all you need. You don't need the credit score. They're going to charge you for that. You don't need that. And plus, a lot of credit cards give that to you free now anyway. But you need the credit report because then you can see if any accounts have been opened up in your name, and that means your information's out there and you're using it. And that's what Seth was saying here. One more thing about the loan, another thing that's coming up, not just the fake job scams, but also loans. People needing money right now. I mean, I don't know if in Minnesota, Seth, this is an issue, but it probably is. Unemployment is a mess here. And there's so many people who wanted it, overloaded the systems. DES, our Department of Economic Security, was not ready. And they're still not ready. And there are people who are not getting, for weeks and weeks and weeks, not getting unemployment. And then others who are getting it, who through some fraud never applied for it. So these people, need money. And this person applied for a loan. They called it through a finance company in Dallas. Because this being an unsecured loan, it was an unsecured loan, they told me to buy Google Play cards, which we've talked about, and Money Card, MasterCard, total $2,654 as verifications. So there's some, they get you, and then they're very nice, but they're very stern, and they kind of have you, and you want this money. And this person ended up sending them that amount of money on these gift cards. And she says, please tell the whole U.S., don't be scammed this way. So anytime you're paying for a loan, don't do it. You're trying to get a loan, you're not going to be paying a lot of money up front for that. Sweepstakes. It's still, you mentioned sweepstakes used to be, that's been the bread and butter of these scammers. I've been doing this for years and been the bread and butters. This is one where you may not fall for it, but how about your parents? I think this is a good opportunity to talk to your parents and grandparents about what they're seeing in their mail, if they're getting phone calls, if you have the relationship, and I hope you do, where you can actually see their bank account at a certain point to see what's going in and out. This person, the father's 95 years old, heavily into sweepstakes. And they keep, the more, I think you end up on a list probably if you end up biting on these things. And so he receives these things. He's going to get $30,000. Well, in order to do that, he thinks he has a better chance. And this seems like a small amount. He sends them a check every month for $22. But he's been doing it for years. So imagine, in 1 year, you spend $300 or more. How many years have you been doing that for nothing? There's no sweepstakes here. It's bogus. So in order to pay money to get it, same thing with Publishers Clearinghouse. It's a big scam that comes up a lot. It's a legitimate organization. They do give money out. But the way they do it is they surprise you. They're not going to write you and say that you need to send them, $1,000 in order to get this prize. That's bull. So anytime you have to pay to get, to me, that's an issue. Yeah,
we always say you can never win a lottery that you don't enter. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, common sense. But again, like these scammers are are really, they're master manipulators, and they're great at building a rapport with someone and then taking advantage of them. We see this a lot on romance scams that aren't really always about, like dating or hooking up. Usually it's just a
Yeah.
personal connection. And a lot of these guys pose as military members or veterans, and they have a long backstory that people can identify with. They can see on your Facebook if you're particularly have an affiliation with veterans, and so they'll set you up that way, and they'll create that emotional connection. And they're willing to wait. They're not going to ask for money right away. They're going to build that connection. They're going to let you know about their story, and then when they know that the time's right, when they know that you're personally, emotionally connected with them, then they'll start to extract money from you. And one of the things that we really talk a lot about at AARP and in Arizona and all our state offices is just how we need to change the narrative around people who get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
If you're in the parking lot, leaving the shopping mall, and you get held up at gunpoint for $50, everybody is going to blame the criminal. Everybody is going to give you empathy and sympathy. But if you get taken advantage of for online and you lose $50,000, people are going to treat you like you're, like something's wrong with you, that you're gullible. And so there's no difference. The criminal is at fault. The criminal is taking advantage of you. But sometimes the people that lose the most amount of money have the hardest time getting sympathy or empathy from even their own family members. And we talk about what we see reported is just the tip of the iceberg, because we know most of these crimes don't get reported because there's so much shame and embarrassment with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was just looking through these papers. I've got all these emails. There was one here that really put that well about the physical toll, because I've been on the, law enforcement has a lot going on. They've got a lot to do that, that's serious stuff. But in some cases, and maybe more recently it's changed a bit, but, they haven't taken these consumer scams as seriously as I think maybe they should be taken. And again, I know kind of why they say that, but I was looking through some of these, and it's, this one. Okay, I had $4,500. The stress this has caused me was so bad that I had a severe panic attack that sent me to the ER by ambulance. This happened at 20. It was diagnosed as an acute form of PTSD. These things happen. These people. I've heard. We've had cases where the person has taken their life because of being scammed out of thousands of dollars. And we've talked to that person and before, and then it's been the kids who had to tell us that. And so these are serious scams, and they should be taken seriously. And again, if you get caught in these things, these people are pros. They know what they're doing. They've been making money on this. This is what they've been doing for years. And so they work you, and they know how to work you. Once they get in any little bit, then they're in, and then you can't get them out unless you do certain things. And the more you do, the more you're in it, and the more you're giving away. And that's how they get you. I wanted to talk about, there's some newer scams that are coming up. Seth said it best, I think. They're basically old scams with new faces. And the new face is kind of COVID and the pandemic. We got one about some phone number, and I called it. They want money for some police thing regarding defunding of police. You're going to get those kinds of things too. And I call the number back just to see it. It's already gone. A lot of these places, and probably a lot of you know about this, but about spoofing, and there's software that's online that's easily available, and these companies can take numbers and make it look like, they could be in Malaysia, and they make it look like they're calling from Scottsdale or Tempe or wherever, because they could change the numbers on there. So you think you're getting a local call, and it's not local at all. That's the other thing some people have told me. I answer the call when it says 480 or 602, or if the prefix looks like, it's familiar to me. Well, that can all be faked, and that's what's happening, more and more. I looked at the FTC site too, Seth, about these coronavirus, COVID scams, and there were some things that they came up with that they said, and we've gone over these, but in a different way, that you probably shouldn't do. They said, learn how to tell the difference between a real contact tracer and a scammer. Legitimate tracers need health information, not money or personal financial information, because these scams are going on. Don't respond to text, emails, or calls about checks from the government. Okay, which is true. And I say don't respond to those things anyway. Ignore offers for vaccinations and home test kits. They're selling products. Be wary of ads for test kits. Hang up on robocalls. Scammers are using illegal robocalls to pitch everything from low-price health insurance to work-at-home schemes. And then watch for emails claiming to be from CDC or the WHO. And then they talk about using sites like coronavirus.gov and usa.gov/coronavirus. Those are legitimate sites. And so if you get one of those things and you're questioning it, go to a legitimate federal site to see if any of those things are real. And whatever else you want to talk about yourself, we got a few minutes left. I was going to go over a couple of these emails.
Speaking of the coronavirus, so one of the things that scammers always do is they follow the headlines. And so with the coronavirus, the economic downturn, the rise in unemployment, we can kind of predict what's going to happen next. And so as long as unemployment's high, there's going to be work from home scams. Like looking in the chat on this conversation, people are talking about how hurting people are for money. So there's always going to be like make a quick buck easy. Those scams are going to happen. If we get another spike in cases, the testing at home scams are going to happen. If there's another round of stimulus funding, the stimulus scams are going to happen again. And when we get to the point where there's a vaccine, you're going to see a rash of scams around, get in line first or get quick access. And so knowing following what's happening and realizing that you're going to be targeted with scams related to that is a great way to be aware and alert. And so that's something we talk to people about a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to go over a few of these email or posts rather. We went over a few of these things. The scam, it says the scammer is not Amazon specifically. Yeah, it's not Amazon that's causing the scam. It's people using the names of these legitimate sounding companies. Christine talks about the grandparent scam where, if you weren't listening, we talked about that, where somebody calls and pretends to be a grandchild and the person usually gives them the name. Oh, is this Mary? Oh yeah, it's Mary. Because the person's calling, they don't know the name of the grandkid. And so, yeah, a lot of times, and I don't know if you heard this stuff, but we talk to those people, they're like, yeah, they had my grandkid's name. Well, typically they don't. Usually it's a grandparent who gives it to them inadvertently. I almost got scammed by that bill. Let's see. Social Security, it's a big one. Jim, had a call from Social Security this week. Need to press 1 on the phone. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Social Security isn't going to call you in 99% of the time unless you've called them first. And they're calling you back. So I would go to if you think there's a Social Security issue, I would not handle that. I would go to my Social Security account, which you probably have, and is legitimate, or .gov, and then handle it that way. Let's see. Social Security, yeah, another one. Social Security being stolen in New York. That's a huge one. Tech support. Tech support scams are still big, and it's like the one we talked about earlier, where they get in. Anybody who's trying to get into your computer remotely and you don't know them, you haven't called. They can, the local computer shop, and they're trying to get in for whatever reason. It's a scam, and they're going to use legitimate names like they used to use Microsoft and Windows. Well, Microsoft, they have millions of accounts, and people who use their computers. They're not going to be calling you to look at usage on your computer that you may have malware. That doesn't happen. Let's see. Yeah, another one with that. Not talking about COVID, yeah, about scams, right? As we go through a few more. Otherwise, I think we're almost done. I was going to put on, while we're looking through these, maybe just our contact information one last time here. I'll just do mine quickly. Joe at ABC15.com. That's what let Joe know. We can take a look at you. We've got people who volunteer and try to work with people every day and try to solve their situations. And then Seth, go ahead and give your information again.
Yeah, you can find us online at aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. You can also find AARP local resources at aarp.org/az. So the Arizona office has lots of great things happening, even in this virtual world. So that's a great place to find information as well.
One of the most annoying ones is Valerie, talking about not Valerie, but about what she says. Valerie, I'm sure, is a very nice person. but she talks about a car warranty issue. I mean, my gosh, how long have those gone on? We have this car. I don't even have a new car, or my car's 15 years old or whatever, and they're calling about this bogus warranty on a car. That's still a big one. So yeah, a lot of the scams that we've seen just take on new, timely fronts.
Yeah, no, I think that's what they never will go away. They will always be with us. And I think that's why we always say be skeptical and do the 3 steps: stop, think, and verify, and you'll be there.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Well, I think we're probably done here. Cortland, I don't know if you're right there. I know you got a lot going on here, but we'll see if that's the case. Seth, I appreciate you being part of this. And
no problem.
if anybody wants to contact you, they could do that through AARP. If they want to get hold of us, they know how to do that. And yeah, keep fighting the fight. And again, I think probably what you see in your population in many cases is people who, and it's changing, but people who still want to trust, and it's okay in some cases, in these cases, not to trust, to be skeptical of anything that comes up involving your money.
Yeah, no, I mean, trusting is good. It's part of, it's part of what makes this country great, but trust, verify.
Yeah.
As Reagan used to say. So.
Yeah. And when a stranger wants your money, then I think that, you should be a little concerned about that. But all right, I think that's good. Thank you for being here, and thanks for all those who weighed in, and hopefully we help some people. And if we're still on, we'll